What if I told you the biggest mistake new project managers make has nothing to do with Agile, Scrum, Microsoft Project, Jira, or even communication? Most people think landing the job is the hard part. Well, it isn't. Getting hired proves someone believes you can be a project manager. Your first 90 days determine whether people believe that they can trust you as a leader. And those, well, they're actually two completely different things. I watched talented people lose credibility in their first few weeks, not because they weren't capable, but because nobody taught them how to earn the right to actually lead. Today, I'm going to share with you some lessons, some principles I wish someone had taught me before I started my first project management job. You know how we do it here. This will not be no theories. This won't be textbook advice. These are actually lessons I paid through with experience, mistakes, and more than a few humbling moments. Because if you can earn the right to lead, everything else becomes a whole lot easier. I still remember my first project management job. Yeah, I know. Honestly, it reminded me of the night before the first day of school. I already had my clothes laid out the night before. My bag was packed. I even set two alarm clocks because there was no way I was going to oversleep. And then before any one of you guys judge me, I was just excited, okay? The Sunday night felt like it lasted forever. I kept rolling over, looking at the clock. And man, what is Monday going to hit already? I couldn't stop thinking about everything that I was about to change. In my mind, this was it. This was the opportunity I worked so hard for. I remember thinking, I made it. Then the alarm finally went off. I jumped out my bed before it had a chance to ring a second time. Everything was ready. I got to the office, met my manager. We talked about my onboarding plan. They explained how the next few weeks would actually work. Then we even went out to lunch. I remember just sitting there thinking, Mama, we made it. For a brief moment, everything felt exactly the way I imagined it would. Then I walked into the first project meeting. I looked around the room. There were people who had worked together for years, people who knew the system, the history, the personality, the politics, the conversation that happened after the meetings. And that's when it actually just hit me. I mean, my biggest challenge wasn't going to be learning project management. It was learning people. I realized I needed to turn my excitement down a little bit and my curiosity up a little bit because before anyone was going to trust me to lead their project, I first had to earn the right to lead them. Here's a reflection, family. There are moments in life that change you before you even realize that you're changing. Looking back, I thought my first project management job was going to test my technical skills. I thought people were going to evaluate me based on how well I built schedules, facilitated meetings, and updated project plans. But I could have been more wrong. What I learned over the following months is that your first project management job isn't really an evaluation of the project management skills. It's an evaluation of your judgment. It's an evaluation of your humility. It's even an evaluation of your ability to earn trust with people who you really don't know. Here's the lesson. The truth is, nobody hires a project manager hoping they'll walk in day one and change everything. They hire someone they believe can help people move forward together. That means before you change a process, before you recommend a new tool, before you introduce a better way of doing something, you have to earn the right to lead. That lesson I wish someone, oh man, I wish someone had taught me before I ever stepped into my first project management role. But today, we're going to talk about those principles that completely change how I approach every new team I've ever joined. Principle number one, your first job isn't managing projects, is learning people. One of the biggest misconceptions new project managers have is believing their success depends on how quickly they understand the project. In reality, your success depends on how quickly you begin understanding people responsible for delivering the project. Every organization has relationships, informal leaders, communication styles, histories that aren't really documented anywhere. Those unwritten dynamics influence almost every decision that gets made. If you ignore the team, you'll spend months wondering why logical decisions aren't producing the outcomes you expected. Learn people first, and the project will begin to make more sense. Here's a lesson, family. People don't follow project plans or project schedules. People follow people they trust. Here's two actual tips I'd love for you to experiment with. First, schedule one-on-one conversations during your first weeks and spend more time asking questions than giving your opinion. Second one, keep a notebook of names, responsibilities, personalities, and communication preference. Here's my professional advice, family. Technical knowledge may get you hired. Mhm. But understanding people, it would earn you influence. The best project managers know that relationships are built before they are needed. And once you begin understanding people, another temptation shows up almost immediately. Is that desire to fix everything. Principle number two, don't try to fix everything right away. Learn how they do it first. Ah, man, I wish I would have listened to this principle. I wish somebody would have dropped this principle for me, family, because every organization has delivered its own way of working through years of success, failure, and hard earned lessons. Some processes may look inefficient from the outside, but they're often a story behind why they exist. Walking in and immediately suggesting changes can unintentionally communicate that you value your experience more than theirs. Give yourself permission to observe before you optimize. The more you understand the reason behind a process, the better your future recommendations will be. People are much more receptive to change when they know you've taken the time to understand what came before you. Here's a lesson, family. You earn the opportunity to improve a system by first respecting the system you're inheriting. Here's two actionable tips I'd love for you to experiment with. First, during your first month, replace "we should" with "can you help me understand why?" Second one, before recommending a change, ask yourself if you learned enough about the history behind the current process. Here's my professional advice, family. Your first responsibility isn't proving how much you know, it's about proving your willingness to actually learn. And there's another phase that can destroy credibility before you even had a chance to build it. Principle number three, never start a sentence with, at my last company. uh, Yeah, see, almost everyone says this with good intentions. I've done it. I mean, if I'm being transparent, I've done it many times and I got a reaction and I was like, what is going on here? See, but it's rarely received the way you intended. What you believe is helpful comparison can sound like criticism to the people listening. Teams naturally take pride in the way they work, even if they openly acknowledge areas they need improvement. Constantly referencing your previous company shifts the focus away from learning and towards comparison. Instead of making people curious about your experience, it is often makes them defensive about theirs. The goal isn't to prove where you've been. The goal is understand where you are before offering another perspective. Here's the lesson, family. Respect the present before referencing the past. Here's two actionable tips I'd love for you to experiment with. First, replace comparison with curiosity by asking how the current process evolves. Second, wait until you build trust before sharing experiences from previous organizations. Here's my professional advice. People don't resist ideals because they're new. They resist feeling like their experience is being dismissed. As trust begins to grow, you'll discover something that surprises almost every new project manager. Principle number four, build credibility before you build change. Mm, mm. One of the biggest mistakes ambitious professionals make is believing that the fastest way to demonstrate value is by changing everything they see. In reality, credibility is built through consistency, preparation, reliability, and sound judgment. Every meeting you facilitate, every commitment you keep, and every interaction you handle professionally becomes another vote of confidence in your leadership. Those small moments compound over time. Once people trust your judgment, they'll begin asking for perspective instead of questioning your intentions. Here's a lesson, family, I want you to think about. People rarely buy into your ideals until they first bought into you. I'll say that one more time. People rarely buy into your ideals until they first bought into you. Here's two actual tips I love you to experiment with. First, focus on doing the small things exceptionally well during your first few months. Second, deliver on every commitment, even the ones that seem insignificant. Here's my professional advice, family. Trust grows quietly through consistency long before it's recognized publicly. Because eventually, all of these lessons point towards one final realization. Principle number 5, leadership is earned before authority is given. Oh, that we could just shut it down right there, family, because your title, that title you have, may introduce you as the project manager, but your actions determine whether people choose to follow your leadership. Authority can assign work, but influence inspires commitment. Every conversation, every decision, every response to adversity either strengthens or weakens your credibility. Leadership isn't something you receive on your first day. It's something you earn through humility, preparation, hard work, integrity, and genuine care for the people around you. That's why the best project managers are remembered not just for delivering projects, but they are remembered for how they made people feel while they were delivering them. Here's the lesson I want you to think about, fam. The greatest project managers don't demand respect. They earn it. Here's 2 actual tips I'd love for you to experiment with. First, ask yourself each day, what did I do today to earn someone else's trust? Second, measure your success, not only by the completed task, but by stronger relationships. Here's my professional advice, family. Influence is the foundation of exceptional leadership. When people trust your character, they'll naturally place more confidence in your decision. You know, when I think back to that first project management job, even to this day, sometimes I just smile. Not because I had everything figured out, but because I had no idea how much I still had to learn. I thought project management was about leading and managing schedule. I discovered it was more about managing relationship. I thought leadership came with the title. I discovered leadership is something you earn every single day. And that realization changed not only the way I manage projects, but it changed the way I've approached people. Here's a final reflection, family. If you're getting ready to start your first project management job, let me encourage you with this. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to have every answer. You don't have to walk into the office pretending you've seen it all before. In fact, the people who become the strongest project managers are usually the ones who never stop learning. Walk with confidence, though, but let that confidence come from your willingness to listen. Walk in with ideals, but let those ideals be shaped by understanding before they're shared. Walk in ready to lead. But remember that leadership begins long before anyone decides to follow you. One conversation, one meeting, one commitment, one relationship at a time. Looking back, I realized that was the greatest lesson from my first project management job. Had nothing to do with project management. It was learning that every interaction is either building trust or spending it. Choose to build it every single day, because when people trust you, they'll follow your leadership. And when they follow your leadership, let's do that again. Projects have a much greater chance of succeeding. Well, family, as I bring us to a close, if there's one thing I hope you take away from today's episode is this. Your first project management job isn't about proving that you're the smartest person in the room. It's about becoming the person people can trust when the room gets difficult. So I ask of you, never stop learning, never lose your curiosity, and never forget that every great project manager started exactly where you are today. One opportunity, one first date, one chance to earn the right to lead. I appreciate your time today, family. If this episode encouraged you, I'd love for you to share with someone who's about to begin their first project management role. And remember, sets and reps beat talent when talent doesn't do the reps. If you're new to the episode, I go by the name ED. For all you smart and intelligent folks out there, hey, listen, that just simply means Ed. Until next time.